Ever since I was a little boy, I've loved animals. I found comfort in them, especially since I had no family of my own. I lived on my godmother's farm, and her family wasn't particularly nice to me. My name's Sylvan, and when I turned 18, I left my godmother's home to become a zoologist. I used the inheritance I got from my parents, bought a plot of land, and studied to become what I've always dreamed of. I met Clara in university. It was a whirlwind romance. We dated for a few months, and we got married by the end of the year. Clara supported my dreams, but she soon realized that animal rescue and conservation wasn't a job that brought in much profit, if any at all. Instead, I spent most of my time holding galas and charity events to beg people for donations. Clara began to grow distant when the company started to decline. People were just not interested in animals, except when they would come to the rescue to take selfies and ask to play with them. A few years into our marriage, and Clara was already regretting her decision. The company was in danger of closing, and nobody was donating anymore. Which was why I thought meeting Darren was a stroke of amazing luck. Darren was a philanthropist. He was a billionaire who was always looking for places to put his money in. And he chose my rescue center. I was so happy that I even hosted a dinner for the guy, in my own home. Little did I know, Darren was also putting his money in places he shouldn't. Namely, my wife. One day, Darren just waltzed into my office and had me removed by my own security. I was no longer CEO. Neither was I the majority shareholder. Darren had bought the whole company from under me, thanks to my wife selling her shares behind my back, and thanks to her cheating on me with Darren from the day we met him. I knew Clara wasn't content living a life without luxuries, but I never knew she would betray me like that in the name of a few trinkets and designer dresses. In one fell swoop, I lost everything I cared about. Clara kicked me out of the house. I tried living with some friends for a while, but after a month or two, I'd feel too embarrassed. I'd eventually ended up living in the streets. A month later, I saw Clara and Darren's faces in the newspapers. They'd gotten married in a lavish ceremony. Meanwhile, I was shining strangers' shoes and begging for change for a living. The city was small, so eventually the pair of them passed by where I begged. At first, they hardly recognized me, but when they did, my wife laughed. "You begged even when you had money? And now you beg when you are poor." Ha! Typical. "Don't be so mean to the homeless, Clara. Here, dog, you can have this." Darren dangled a $100 bill in front of me, but when I reached for it, he quickly moved the money away from my grasp. "But first, you have to dance for us, like a trained monkey." I looked at him and saw that he wasn't kidding at all. He took everything from me, and now he wanted my dignity. My head told me to keep my pride, but my stomach said there was no honor in starvation. So I danced. I danced to earn my dinner, and people laughed and pointed. But at least I knew I wasn't going hungry that day. "Let's go, sweetheart. He's embarrassing. I don't want people to say we know him." "Now, wait a minute, sweetie. I told you he's like a perfectly obedient puppy. He's going to be my new servant. Now we've broken him, he'll be the perfect little maid. I'll even make him wear a uniform." "That's a great idea. See, Sylvan? We're nice people. Now you have a job, thanks to us." Thank you. It hurt my pride, but I had no other choice. Perhaps it was my shot at having something stable. Nobody else wanted to hire a homeless guy. If I had to swallow my pride, I was ready to do it to get back up again. I wandered the streets, asking myself if I'd made the right decision. I sighed and sat on a park bench. That was when I saw an extremely beautiful lady arguing with two other girls. "It's just a selfie. Jeez, you're so stingy." I'm really sorry. gave you selfies already. It's making me too uncomfortable taking too many. Please leave me alone. You should be thankful your fans love you. Now just smile and take the picture. Please? No, you already took your pictures. Please, go away. Are these girls bothering you, miss? Ew, a hobo! Run, girl! He probably has rabies! But before they went on their way, they threw their empty smoothie cups at the pretty lady. I never thought you'd be this selfish and rude. I'm unfollowing you. But at last, the lady was left alone. She shivered and trembled for a good 5 minutes after that. I'd never seen anyone be so anxious. So I asked her what I could do to help. Hug me. I hesitated, but when she looked up at me with helpless eyes, I couldn't say no. The moment I had my hands around her, she relaxed. She was asleep in 30 seconds, and when she woke up from her nap, she found me still holding her. She didn't turn her nose up at me or judge me for being homeless and dirty. Instead, she planted a kiss on my cheeks. Thank you. I needed that. Her name was Arwen, and she had bad anxiety. That day, she proposed something ludicrous to me. She wanted me to become her bodyguard, and when she brought me to her house to clean me up and give me new clothes, I understood why. Arwen was the daughter of a billionaire. She was also a massively famous influencer. She had over 2.6 million subscribers on YouTube alone. But the real Arwen was different from her online persona. She was always nervous, and growing up the daughter of a billionaire, people were always trying to take advantage of her or capture her for a ransom. That's why she was always stressed and afraid. Not only did Arwen make me her bodyguard, she wanted me to be a hugger. When I asked her what that meant, she giggled as if I was the one being silly. You're going to hug me whenever and wherever I ask you to, of course. Yeah, because professional hugger was definitely a normal job. People go to college for it. But I knew why she needed it. Even when she'd simply meet new people, she'd tremble and shake. I was starting to care for my generous benefactor, so I said yes. Whenever Arwen was stressed, she would ask for a hug. When she went out and she noticed people staring, she would ask for a hug. We would cuddle at shops, cafes, at the club. She refused to go to any red carpets without me there, hugging her at all times. News about us began to spread. I found myself in the front pages of tabloids. Paparazzi hounded us everywhere. Who is this mystery hugger? Arwen spotted holding hands with hot bodyguard. Those were always the headlines. Suddenly, I had millions of girls thirsting after me, wanting to know who I was. The best part of working for Arwen was that it didn't feel like work. I was starting to feel like I would love to hold her just because. And not because she paid me. But boy, did she pay me well. At the end of the year, I drove up to the old rescue center, and I was furious. Darren and Clara had turned it into a zoo. They were making money off of the animals that I loved. I got on the phone with my lawyer and told him to make an offer on the place. That was when Darren and Clara saw me. Ah, the prodigal son returns. I was expecting you to come in for work months ago. Are you here to beg for more money? Oh, look, he's cleaned up. Maybe he's trying to apply for a job. You had your chance, buddy. I'm here to do no such thing. You've ruined my rescue center. And I'm here to take it back. With what money? You managed to beg enough on the streets? Oh, was that you? I got an email saying somebody wanted to buy the place, but... Sylvan, dear boy, your offer is way too low. You realize this is a profitable zoo now, not a crumbling rescue center. Even if you double your offer, you won't be able to afford it. Clara laughed. I knew Darren was right. I didn't have enough money to take back what was mine. You are so lazy. You came back for revenge, and you didn't even bother to make enough money first? I knew I was right in leaving you. Even now, you can't afford anything. But he can. Arwen stepped out of the limo, and although she was trembling with nerves, she held her head high. Sweetheart! Hi, Dad. Clara gasped. My eyes showed my shock. I'd been falling in love with Darren's daughter this whole time? Arwen nodded at me and with that one gesture, told me that she had my back. When you left, Mom, I knew you'd be up to some shady stuff again. Look at you, turning a rescue center into a cash cow. But Dad, as always, your lawyers were lazy, and I just got off the phone with mine. Did you really think only you can play your game? Darren got a phone call, and when he answered it, his eyes widened with fear. What is it? Hostile takeover. She's done it. She owns everything. It must have taken all the courage in her to say and do all that to her own father. And she ran to me for another hug. Get off her! Get off my daughter! No. You get off my property! Sylvan, I love you. Would you? Will you marry me? I will not allow this! I looked into Arwen's eyes and said yes. Clara realized that she was about to lose everything. Let's not get too excited, Sylvan. You said you came here to take back what's yours. I used to be yours too. Maybe we could... Absolutely not! Now, didn't I tell you to get off my property? Guards! I instructed my staff to release the animals from the cruel cages they were put in, so they could roam freely in their enclosures like they used to. And I had my guards haul Darren and Clara into one of the cages so they would know what living in there felt like. Just then, 3 trucks filled with designers, stylists, and caterers began to flood the place. Arwen intended to marry me right then and there. The moment we said our vows was the first time I confessed my true feelings for Arwen. I love you, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. Darren and Clara protested in their cage, and as our friends, fans, and families watched, as the animals I cared for witnessed our love, I kissed my new wife and I hugged her for the first time as her husband.